The eradication of all life in the galaxy is a burden he's willing to bear. Here's a look at the brand new Threezero Transformers MDLX, Transformers Shattered Glass, Rodimus, Unicronus. Threezero is proud to announce the newest character in the MDLX series. From the Shattered Glass universe, where the roles and factions have been reversed, Shattered Glass Rodimus Unicronus, whose goal is to usurp the command and reform the Autobots into the greatest mercenary team of the universe. MDLX Shattered Glass Rodimus Unicronus comes with a redesigned head sculpt. The figure is approximately 7 inches tall with over 46 points of articulation and a die-cast zinc alloy and engineer-grade plastic eternal frame system. Something I never thought I'd say, but I hope the Decepticons are nearby to stop all of this tyranny. One thing I, though, would also like to say is I'd like to thank the folks over at Threezero. They were kind enough to provide the sample of the brand new MDLX Rodimus Unicronus that we could have a look at this review. The figure is slated to drop the first quarter of 2025. Many of the online sites currently that have a pre-order have that pre-order listing for $89.99. Essentially, though, this is just a recoloring of their already released MDLX Rodimus Prime. Don't worry, I'll be bringing that figure in shortly. It's one of my favorite figures we've gotten from the MDLX line. You could probably see in a second why I think that. Let's, though, also think about maybe getting the tape measure and seeing how tall the figure actually stands. Rodimus Unicronus is going to stand at about 7 inches in height, or roughly about 17.5 centimeters tall. Yeah, when it comes to borrowing bodies, he's actually borrowing from the originally released MDLX Rodimus Prime. They have retooled a brand new head sculpt, so you'll kind of see that also in a second. They've also done a few different decals, also more importantly, the flame effect that he has on the front of his chest. And of course, instead of having the more traditionally red-orange colors, they've given him black and purple instead. Does he come in black? He does come in black. Also here as well, speaking of leaders, here's also what he looks like with the MDLX Optimus Prime, one of the first outings that we got from the MDLX series. One, though, as a figure that I hope that they update with a release down the road. Speaking of roads, rolling out of the packaging along with Rodimus, the figure does come included, first of all, with instruction booklet. The booklets just kind of give you the lay of the land of exactly what accessories come included with the character. It shows you, though, the limitations, not that there's a whole lot of them, of what the figure can actually do, and also some of the options available that the figure does also have hands for holding the Matrix. The Matrix, though, isn't included with Rodimus. It certainly, though, was packaged along with Optimus. There's also as well how to assemble the Eliminator rifle. We'll talk also about that in a second. Let's just move the booklet off to the side. The figure also, like I said, does come include with some things that you can use borrowed over from Optimus Prime. One of which happens to be the hand-shaking hand. The hand itself would be normally swapped in out with Optimus Prime, so you basically would just take out the hand that he has right now, so I guess it would be on this side. You pop that out, you replace it with a hand that comes included with Rodimus. Now, the original Rodimus also had the same hand. In fact, actually all the accessories are the same one shared over with Rodimus. You just replace this hand with this hand here, and then you can actually have him shaking hands with Rodimus Unicronus, which I don't think is really likely going to happen. You basically just take the other hand here, and you just hook the two together, and you kind of have them interlinked to one another, and you can have them shaking hands. With the likelihood of this being a Shattered Glass release of Rodimus, I don't think the chances of them shaking hands are really going to happen. The figure also does come included with, like I said, a series of interchangeable hands. He does come with a closed fist. He does come with a partially gripping hand, good for holding his pistols. The figure does also have a couple of gestured hands. Now, right now, I've actually already got one closed fist on one side and one gripping hand on the other. If, for all intents and purposes, the figure would have actually had a set of each, like I said, I've just happened to use those hands for right now. A couple of gestured hands also get invited over when it comes to this release of the figure. The same ones, in fact, that also got included with Rodimus Prime before. You get a pointing hand. You get also as well a thumbs up hand. But the cool hands that he also comes included with are ones for holding specifically the Matrix, which again, if you happen to have that Optimus Prime from before, that Prime came included with the Matrix. So what you really do, Joe, is what you do though, is you basically just take the hands, you hook them around the handles like this. Do the same thing on the other side. So basically, as you can see, like the fingers are split in the middle, 2 on one side, 2 on the other. And with that, you basically just hook them around the handles of the Matrix, and the figure can hold them like that. I mean, he holds it so much better, obviously, if you attach it onto the forearms. The figure also does come included with his Eliminator rifle. Now, he comes in 3 parts. I wanted to bring in at least the ones we got from Rodimus. Color-wise, they're not that much different. So if one happens to go in the wrong tray, like say, for example, this one into Rodimus's tray, this one into Rodimus Unicronus's tray, I don't think I would really be able to spot the differences between the two. Now, it comes in 3 parts. So for what you could do is that you can have the figure, like, for example, displayed, not to drop that one, you can have the figure displayed with, say, the full cannon, like this, or the full rifle. And then for this one, what it essentially is, though, is that you're going to take this piece, so it's a separate piece altogether. And there's a peg right here. There's a peg right there. So you're going to take the end nozzle, which does have a hole. You line everything up. It basically sits inside the groove. Snap the two together. Well, snapping is probably not the best word you want to be using. You want to make sure, of course, you got it facing the right way. There we go. You plug that in, and now you got yourself 2 larger-looking rifles that can be displayed in the figure's hands. But wait, there's more. What you can also do, too, is take the end nozzle off. We'll just put that off to the side. You can take the 2 ends, the longer of the 3, and again, you just line everything up. So now he's got himself a much longer eliminator rifle. I think when it comes, though, to Unicronus, I'm likely going to be displaying the figure with the longer rifle. Most of the time when I end up displaying Rodimus Prime on my shelf, I tend to display him with 2 of them separate. So he's got himself like dual blasters. So let's move that all off to the side. By the way, though, if you did want to change out the hands for Unicronus, all it's really needed on your part is basically just detach the hand from the peg. Use the hand that you want to use. So, like, for example, what's a good hand that we can use? Maybe a thumbs-up hand. We'll just take, of course, there's the hole on the bottom of it, lining up with the peg provided, and just basically push it in place. You want to make sure, though, that you're pushing it far enough in so that when you are moving the figure around, for example, you're going to have this, and you're not going to have the hand on the floor instead. The one other thing that the figure does also have that Rodimus had before is, of course, his spoiler. Now, to bring back in Rodimus's, you can see that Rodimus would have had the familiar colors of yellow and orange. Unicronus, on the other hand, though, now trades it out for silver and purple. It's the same mold from what I can see, and it attaches onto the back of his body the exact same way as well. So there's a little open groove here, and then, of course, you've got the little peg. I shouldn't even say so little. There's a peg there that sticks up, and basically you'll just line the 2 up together and just pop it in place, just like that. That's the only real assembly that's required when it comes to getting this guy out of the packaging. The one other thing that has been changed on this, other than cosmetic colors, is now he's got a brand new sneering face. From first glance, it actually looked like he had a mustache, which isn't a bad thing at all. There's something, though, about the next generation of Transformers post the Transformers 80s movie that I really like mustaches on Transformers. Realistically, it probably doesn't make any sense. Like, why would you have, like, a Sweep, for example, with a mustache, or even Unicron? But somehow I really like the look of it. Anyways, though, he does have a sneering face on his head sculpt, which, again, is very different from the original Rodimus Prime, or original MDLX Rodimus Prime that we got before. Body-wise, they're going to be exactly the same. It doesn't look like they've changed anything at all. I mean, there could have been maybe an opportunity, like, for example, like he's got these arm gauntlets that has a little bit of posability at play. Maybe they could have just changed this a little bit, so like from a mold standpoint, he's a little bit varied. But the colors work really well for this mold. I could be maybe a little biased because I liked the mold so much before, but I think the purple works really well with the backdrop of black. Got some nice metallic reds added in there as well. The skirting down below here. There's one thing also, too, that with my original Rodimus Prime that I had some issues. In fact, actually, let's just put this guy down here for a second. Rodimus Prime, I had one issue with this skirt piece at the back here, and it still falls off. So I was kind of thinking to myself, is this going to be an issue that's also going to plague Unicronus? And it wasn't the case at all. In fact, the skirting on the back does have a peg that allows it to move back and forth, but I haven't had it, knock on metal at least, I haven't had it fall off yet. For the details, though, for the rest of the figure, again, you've got a lot of the cool silvers added in here, the purples. Again, like you got the new flame effect there on the front that features the shattered glass Autobot logo. Because, again, in this shattered universe, the Autobots are the bad guys, the Decepticons are the good guys. Some nice metal down below here as well. There's a lot of cool to the touch pieces that you know right away they've added metal to this figure. And there's a lot of weight that goes behind the scenes as well. This guy is super posable, too, and I'll do my best to try to rhyme off everything that's posable about Unicronus here, starting obviously first with his head sculpt. The sneering face does allow for the rotation of the head, so, I mean, obviously the ball joint's going to give the head full rotational swivels, up and down, back and forth. You can also rock it as well, back and forth that way. The figure does also have what seems to be a ball joint at the base of the neck. The original Rodimus also had that as well. The upper torso does actually have a rocking joint. Now, while I'm doing this, you may see that I'm kind of treading cautiously. Not so much the fact that I'm worried about the ball joint breaking, but more to the fact that I just don't want to have these little skirt pieces pop off. So let's just kind of move everything out of the way. So his torso crunches forward about that far. You can kind of really see the workings of this, especially on the back of his body. You can also arch this back also as well. Now the top of the torso also rocks back and forth side to side. The figure does also have a swivel there too. The shoulders rotate normally, I would say, all the way around. If you took really the spoiler off it, you would be able to get a full rotation. There's also a socketed joint here. So if you look at the way that they've designed the arm, the shoulder actually sockets itself inside of a secondary piece. So not only does it have a hinge joint here, but then it extends again, and then you have a hinge right on the inside of his armpit. Would a robot have an armpit? He does have, certainly though, a double hinge on the elbow, so a good range of motion. I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff you can go. I mean, I've had so much fun posing the MDLX figures. Of the things that Threezero do so well when it comes to Transformers related stuff, MDLX is my favorites, just because they're small in size, but they're super detailed and super posable. So when it comes to his legs, now you're gonna want to kind of get in there and start moving the skirting around. The skirting does have ball joints on the fronts, on the sides, and then also on the backs as well. Why I'm moving things sort of out of the way is as I'm kind of moving the legs out, I just want to make sure I don't clip the skirts by accident. So the legs do a full splits. You can take the legs and obviously move them forward and move them back as well. There's a swivel there, obviously, at the top of the thigh there as well. A good fluid motion when it comes to certainly his knee articulation. There's technically also some articulation here for the tops of his boots, where these seem to be able to move back and forth, and I think they do a lot of that just so that when you are moving his ankle around, for example, these front pieces here do a little bit of a job to help get out of the way. Of course, when you can also move these up and down, you can also rock them back and forth. And Rodimus Unicronus, I would normally have said has toe articulation, but unfortunately he doesn't have toe articulation. But he certainly, though, has articulation everywhere else where it counts. The figure as a whole, though, is gorgeous. The one thing I really like about it, though, is there's something about mirror universe characters. I mean, usually they're represented by mustaches and goatees, and even though we don't technically get a mustache and goatee here on Rodimus Unicronus, essentially, though, he is still a recolor of the original MDLX Rodimus Prime, which already was probably my favorite. I think with him and Starscream are my two favorite figures that we've gotten so far from MDLX. Taking already the core idea of what was working so well for the body before, darkening obviously the colors, yes, he does come in black, and adding some really nice pops of purple, ends up getting us a nice looking figure. The thing I also really like too is that they gave him a brand new head sculpt face portrait. So instead of having just a stoic look on his face, he's got a really sinister sneer instead. So when does Rodimus Unicronus come out? I'm so glad you asked. Yeah, this guy's slated to drop the first quarter of 2025. We're kind of within the first quarter right now, so if it isn't within this month, it's probably going to be next month that this guy's going to start to ship from many of the online sites that currently have a pre-order listing of $89.99. For an $89.99 figure, $90 figure, you're getting a figure that has, first of all, tons of posability at his possession, but also the fact that a lot of his body is made of metal. He borrows, yes, obviously the body over from Rodimus Prime. Speaking of borrowing, you probably can already notice as well that I borrowed over the Matrix from the leader of the Autobots, the good Autobots at least, Optimus Prime, just to show you, though, that he has hands to hold the Matrix. The Matrix, from a size standpoint, does seem a little small, doesn't it, versus Unicronus' size of his body, but it is one welcomed additional accessory that if you happen to already have the Optimus Prime and he's not currently using the Autobot Matrix of Leadership, why not give it around to somebody else instead? The one thing I do really like, though, about Unicronus is that he now has a smirking face sculpt, which does take a little away from the stoic face that Rodimus Prime had from before. But I think if you're going to be a mirror universe of anybody, first of all, welcoming a mustache. I think that's one of the requirements of being a mirror universe version of a good guy. You have to have a mustache. You have to have usually sometimes a sashed belt or a suit. Sometimes is an indicator that a mirror universe version of that character exists. But yeah, the fact that he has a sneer is one thing that's different about this figure that wasn't on the Rodimus Prime from before. A big thank you again to the folks over at Threezero that did come through and provide this sample of the upcoming release, MDLX Shattered Glass Rodimus Unicronus. What do you guys think of this figure? Let me know down below in the comments section. Are you guys also into the idea of shattered glass? I mean, speaking of shattered glass, even though he really wasn't shattered glass, I would have loved to have gotten myself a Nemesis Prime, which makes use of an already excellent MDLX Optimus Prime, all decked out in black. Does he come in black? He did. Yes, come in black. If you guys did enjoy this video, you can do it a slow and throw it a like. You guys want to stick around for more so? I hope so. You can hit that subscribe. You can turn on that bell. Of course, you can always come back. As always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.